Have you noticed you're losing the only life you've got because of decisions you're not even making yourself? Every day you stay in that relationship that's not breathing anymore, in that job that drains you, or in that silent routine, you're paying a very real, very high price. You're handing over your time, your energy, your dignity in exchange for a false sense of security. Picture this for a second, just a random night. You're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and there's this pressure in your chest, this physical discomfort you can't quite explain. Everything looks fine on the outside, but inside there's this quiet voice telling you something's off. That little knot in your stomach, it's not just passing stress, it's a biological warning. Your brain knows something you're refusing to face. There's an invisible consequence already forming, and sooner or later it's going to crack something you think is solid right now. I'm not going to tell you yet what exactly is going to break, because first you need to understand why your mind is setting a trap for you in this exact moment. Before we go any further, I want you to know this is your moment. Today could be the turning point you've been waiting for. I'm inviting you to take this deep dive with me, into yourself. It doesn't matter if you're here watching these calm landscapes or just using this space as a safe haven while you go about your day. My only goal is to help you take back the wheel of your life. You're not alone in this. Take a deep breath. Let's do this together. Welcome to this space for deep reflection. Today we're going to figure out how to spot the kind of regret that's going to tear you apart from the inside 10 years from now, and what uncomfortable decision you should start facing today to avoid it. Most people think the biggest human fear is failure. That's a huge lie. The real fear, the one that wakes you up at 3 a.m., isn't messing up. It's getting to the end of your life, looking back, and realizing you weren't the one who actually lived it. Think about that for a second. When did your fear of making other people uncomfortable become more important than your own peace of mind? That question hurts, but you need it if you want to move forward. Let me show you a quick real-life example. Not long ago, I was talking to someone extraordinary. Stable career, picture-perfect family, spotless reputation, and yet they admitted they'd spent 5 years feeling like they were playing a role. 5 years smiling at dinners they didn't want to be at, holding back opinions to avoid conflict, maintaining a structure that was hollowing them out from the inside. They were so focused on not losing what they'd built, they didn't realize they were losing themselves. Here's something practical you can use today. When that nameless anxiety shows up, don't try to drown it out with distractions or work. Pause for a second and ask yourself what you're holding on to out of habit, not conviction. Just noticing that takes a lot of power away from the fear. The problem is, your brain is wired for survival, not happiness. Your mind would rather stick with a familiar misery than risk an unknown joy. That's why it convinces you that enduring is love, loyalty, responsibility. But the reality is different. You slowly start to fade. How much longer are you going to keep justifying your own unhappiness under the disguise of patience? Your brain tricks you by releasing small doses of stress hormones like cortisol, keeping you on edge, as if any change would destroy your entire world. That's the silent cost I was talking about earlier. The real threat isn't that one day everything explodes in some dramatic way. The real tragedy is that nothing ever happens. Months go by, years go by, and you're in the exact same emotional place, carrying that same heavy resignation. Every time you choose silence to avoid conflict, every time you postpone that project you're excited about because it's not the perfect time, you're feeding a monster that grows in the dark. That monster is chronic regret. And I want you to be brutally honest with yourself right now. If you keep acting exactly the way you have over the past 6 months, which version of you is in control, and what are you losing first? Your self-respect or your joy? It's very common to confuse commitment with self-sabotage. We think we're good people for tolerating the intolerable and carrying other people's weight, but your body keeps a precise record of everything you don't say. The migraines start, stomach issues, the insomnia that won't go away. Your biology is screaming that you're in danger. This fast-paced world we live in, constantly pushing us to be productive and perfect, has stolen the space we need to question whether the ladder we're climbing is even leaning against the right wall. There's an entire generation of exhausted adults playing roles they hate just to avoid disappointing people who might not even truly know them. Take a deep breath and picture this. 10 years have passed. It's 2036. You're sitting in a chair, in a quiet room, looking back at your life. You didn't change anything. You stayed silent when you needed to speak. You stayed still when you needed to jump or walk away. How does that pressure in your chest feel now, when time is no longer on your side? That's the unbearable pain I want to protect you from today. That dark weight that settles in when you realize the opportunity passed, and it was entirely by your own doing. To understand what's going on inside you, we need to look at how these patterns are formed in your mind. Since childhood, we're taught to fit into a mold. We get rewarded for obedience and punished for challenging the rules. So the brain builds strong neural shortcuts. It learns that social acceptance equals physical survival. As adults, that turns into a deep fear of rejection. But this defense mechanism is now your biggest prison. You're using childhood tools to try to solve complex adult problems, and the inevitable result is that you betray yourself daily. Have you ever wondered if the price of keeping that image intact in front of others is your own emotional suffocation? That suffocation isn't some abstract idea, it's the real tension you feel in your jaw at the end of the day. Don't blame yourself for being afraid of change. It's the most natural response of an organism trying to protect itself from the unknown. The problem isn't feeling fear, it's handing it the wheel of your life. I often meet people with incredible talent, brilliant ideas, and huge hearts who are completely paralyzed. They're terrified of what their parents, partners, or coworkers might say. They think they're being wise by not rocking the boat. But taken to the extreme, prudence is just cowardice wearing a mask. Here's another cultural lie you need to unlearn today. Inaction is also a decision, and in the long run, it's often the most destructive one. When you choose to do nothing in the face of a problem, you're telling your brain you're not in control. You're handing your personal power over to external circumstances. I want you to think about that one decision you've been putting off for months or maybe years. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't need to say it. That thought that shows up right before you fall asleep, and you quickly push it away because it makes you feel dizzy with fear. That's your signal. In those moments, fear isn't a stop sign, it's a compass. It's pointing straight at the territory where your greatest growth lives. But because uncertainty scares you, you stay where you are, even if what's familiar is slowly destroying you every single day. If the person you love most in this world were stuck in your exact situation, would you tell them to hang on a little longer, or beg them to get out before they lose themselves completely? Every time you avoid that difficult conversation to maintain a fake peace, every time you tolerate a small act of disrespect, your self-esteem takes a microscopic hit. At first, you barely notice it. You go about your routine, meet your responsibilities, smile in family photos, but inside, the emptiness keeps growing. The disconnect from who you really are becomes almost total. This is the silent path to personal irrelevance. You become a spectator in your own story. And the most tragic part? On the surface, no one else can see what you're going through. Only you know the true scale of what you've given up. That's why you need to wake up, right now, before the habit becomes your destiny. Who's really paying the price for your ongoing silence? At first, you start to believe it's just you. You honestly think your sacrifice is protecting your people from something worse. You tell yourself carrying that weight alone is a sign of strength. But the truth is a lot harsher and more direct. When you shut down on the inside, that lack of vitality hits the very people you say you love the most. You're taking away the best version of yourself from them. You're handing them whatever scraps of energy you've got left at the end of the day. A few years ago, I walked alongside a man through a deeply painful human process. He was 52 years old, and we'll call him Carlos so we can picture him more clearly. Carlos had built a successful business from scratch with his own hands. He provided everything material at home, the best schools for his kids, flawless vacations, a beautiful safe house. And yet his eyes were completely empty, gray. One afternoon, he sat across from me, took a breath, and broke down crying in a way that was raw and devastating. He told me his wife had asked for a divorce that very morning. No yelling, no fighting, just a cold, absolute distance. At what exact point do we stop seeing the person breathing right next to us because we're too busy staring at our own flimsy defenses? Carlos was convinced his biggest mistake had been working too much. He believed the lack of physical time was the only thing to blame for his family falling apart. That was the perfect excuse his mind gave him so he wouldn't have to face the truth head on. And this is where that dark turn happens, the one that changes everything in the human mind. After several weeks of searching for real answers, Carlos discovered something that left him frozen in his chair. He wasn't working all those hours to support his family. He was working nonstop because he was deeply terrified of going home. It literally scared him to sit down at dinner in silence and admit his marriage had been dead for 10 years. He used money and the image of being the tireless provider as a perfect shield to avoid making the uncomfortable decision to talk about how empty he really felt. The real conflict in your life is almost never about time, money, or the stress of the system. That suspended consequence I mentioned at the beginning shows up right here, and it hurts. The biggest loss isn't that your relationship ends or that you fail at a specific project. The real loss is using your so-called virtues, being hardworking, loyal, patient, to hide your deepest cowardice. You lie to yourself, dressing up your fear of rejection as heroic sacrifice. And while you see yourself as some untouchable hero for carrying all that weight, life is flying by, and your kids are quietly learning that real love looks a lot like sad resignation. If today you had to look your kids in the eye and explain why you stayed so long in a place where nobody valued you, what lie would you have to come up with on the spot so they wouldn't lose respect for you? This is the truth almost nobody wants to hear when they go looking for help. You are an active accomplice in the prison you're living in today. Nobody forced you to stay quiet the last time someone disrespected you in public. You chose silence because it was the path of least resistance in that moment. You chose to swallow that bitter humiliation instead of holding eye contact and setting a firm boundary. And the direct result was that you lost a big piece of your human dignity. Every time you let another adult decide for you, you become a little more invisible in the real world. Biologically, your brain records every one of these small daily acts of submission. Your nervous system stores all that unreleased tension like water in an already full glass. That's why your neck hurts all the time. That's why you clench your teeth in your sleep until you wear them down. Your body is physically fighting the battle your fearful words won't dare to fight at the table. You need to understand this today. The constant anxiety you feel isn't just some random illness that fell out of a gray sky. It's your own moral compass screaming that you're drifting dangerously far from who you really are. But you can stop this free fall today if you decide to act. There's a very small, powerful action you can take in the next 24 hours. It's called the internal truth pause. The next time someone asks you to do something you don't want to do or offers you a deal that doesn't feel right, don't answer right away. Bite your tongue for a full 3 seconds. Just 3 seconds on the clock. Then calmly say you need to think it over. You don't have to say no on the spot. Just take back full control of your initial response time. That tiny 3-second space breaks the automatic submission loop in your neural wiring. It gives your lungs clean air again. But this practical relief is just the beginning of the path, because the deeper problem is still there, beating in the dark. Carlos also tried making small routine changes at the start of his crisis. He started getting home early on Friday afternoons. He tried to put together romantic dinners out of nowhere. But the human consequence was already completely irreversible in his case. His wife didn't want to spend more time with a man who felt empty and broken. She wanted the alive, brave man she had fallen in love with 20 years earlier. And that man simply didn't exist anymore. He had slowly burned out, putting out fires that were never his responsibility in the first place. What core part of your identity are you letting die today just to keep the people around you comfortable? This is the part of the path where the threat stops being external and becomes deeply personal. We're not talking about your demanding boss, the national economy, or the loud stress of a big city anymore. We're talking about you standing in front of your bathroom mirror. We're talking about the real legacy you're going to leave in other people's memories. If you keep pretending every day that everything's fine, you won't just lose other people's appreciation. You'll lose your respect for yourself. And when your self-image cracks at the root, the road back is full of sharp stones. Little by little, you turn into a resentful, bitter person. You start blaming your partner, your aging parents, or an unfair society for opportunities you let slip through your own hands out of pure fear. Quiet resentment is the slowest, most effective poison there is for destroying the human soul. You end up harshly criticizing the people who do dare to take the leap, the ones who break the visible rules, just because their courage reminds you of your own mental paralysis. How much silent poison are you willing to swallow in your life before you look in the mirror and admit you chose the wrong path? Your mind will come up with 1,000 smart, logical reasons not to change a thing today. It'll whisper that you've got debts to pay, that your kids are still small and fragile, that at your age it's too late to start over from scratch. That's all useless mental noise. It's the big protective lie your old mind uses to keep you sitting in the cave. The cave is dark, damp, and sad, but it's familiar. And for your basic primitive biology, what's familiar always feels safer than the bright light outside. But you're not just a basic animal survival instinct. You have the conscious ability to catch yourself in the act of lying to yourself and to stop that mental trick right in time. You're not just some scared animal trapped in a cage someone else built. Think about the incredible strength you've used all these years to hold together a situation that hurts you this much in silence. All that massive mental effort, all that energy spent covering up the red warning light on the dashboard and pretending the engine isn't making a strange noise. Now imagine, just for a second, what would happen if you took all that powerful fuel and used it to build a real way out. Instead of burning it to keep a version of yourself you can't stand alive, you'd use it to breathe deeply again, standing tall, eyes bright. That's the real difference between barely surviving and actually taking back control of your own story. Where exactly in your life did you hide the version of yourself that didn't ask for permission to exist fully? There comes a point where you can't keep blaming your past or your circumstances. Those logical excuses, no matter how convincing they sound during the day, completely fall apart in the middle of the night in the deep silence of your bed. When you're there, alone with your racing breath and your pounding heart, all that pretty theory becomes useless. This is where you face the raw fear of losing the last drop of your own identity. Because if you keep giving up space on the things that matter to you, there will come a moment, inevitably, when there's nothing left of you to defend in front of anyone. I've met incredible talented people in their 60s who finally had all the time in the world and money in the bank to enjoy it, but they had no idea what to do with their own freedom. They'd spent decades pleasing controlling partners, tolerating abusive bosses, or living out the lives of ungrateful children until the muscle of personal desire completely atrophied. This is the deep regret no one talks about with the honesty it deserves. It's the fear of looking at your wrinkled hands and realizing you spent your one shot at youth paying off someone else's emotional debt, someone who was never tied to your real happiness in the first place. That's why I want you to understand the full weight of postponing the decisions your own body is begging you to make. If you ignore that uncomfortable tension you feel right now while hearing this, the consequence 10 years from now won't just be everyday boredom or some dull sadness. The real consequence will be an existential emptiness so massive that no luxury vacation or full bank account will ever cover it up. It'll be the cold pain of knowing you could have turned the wheel in time, but instead you shut your eyes tight and hit the gas straight into the same old brick wall. Are you really going to let the last truly brave decision of your life be something you did 15 years ago without even thinking? This is the exact moment you need to cross that dark bridge into real, honest discomfort. You've got to stop consuming soft, feel-good self-esteem theory and start setting real, tangible boundaries in your everyday life. The only way to break out of the primitive brain's paralyzing trap isn't to sit there reasoning with it for hours in silence. It's to take one clear, brave action in the real world. When you dare to hold eye contact with someone who's trying to walk all over you, and you say in a steady voice, "I'm not going to allow this today," your brain registers an immediate, powerful leap forward. A clean hit of earned dopamine floods your nervous system. You become bigger, more solid, and a whole lot more respectable. both in the eyes of others and in your own reflection. And here's the final, non-negotiable tool you need to use today. This afternoon or tomorrow morning at the latest, you're going to identify the most uncomfortable, overdue conversation in your close circle. It could be with your distant partner, your business partner, or a childhood friend who's been taking advantage of your trust. You're not going in yelling or unloading a long philosophical speech about everything that's hurt you for the past 10 years. You're going to find that person, look them straight in the eyes, stay completely calm, and clearly state the specific behavior you will no longer tolerate starting now. That's it. That's the whole assignment. One firm sentence. No apologizing for existing. No long justifications. No looking down at the floor like you're scared. The sharp, intense shift you'll feel in the center of your chest when you do this is hard to put into words. You'll feel almost ridiculously strong and incredibly light at the same time. That pure, powerful feeling, that's real oxygen flowing back into the lungs of an adult who finally decided to stand up instead of crawl. It's the full recovery of your dignity, and the moment you slam your hand on the table and mark the true beginning of the end of your paralyzing fear. The road ahead will still be full of logical doubts and small, persistent fears. Healthy fear never fully disappears. It's a necessary passenger in your life, but it doesn't have to keep both hands on your steering wheel anymore. Don't let another single day go by giving away your personal power to someone else's shadow out of pure fear. The person you are right now already has everything needed to break that heavy, suffocating silence that's been slowly eating you alive. Lift your head, take a deep breath, and take responsibility for what's yours to fix with your own hands. Because in the end, the pain of rejection lasts a moment, but the pain of wasted time and silent regret lasts until your final breath. Get up and take back control of your story right now. Remember, this content is educational and does not replace professional care.